Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Eric Jorn, a partner here at the firm. Hey, Eric.
Hey.
So let's get right into it. It's a new year.
Yep.
Everyone's excited. I'm excited. I have my yearly goal. What is yours?
Ooh, what is my yearly goal for Kaizen CPAs?
No, for you.
Oh, for Eric Jorn personally. Well, geez. One of my goals is always, how can I work less, of course. How can I be more efficient, more intentional with my time? Hey, we made a hire. That helps dramatically.
We got another one, too.
We have lots of new hires, lots of people developing, lots of good people on the team to continue to provide good service and help me do and spend my time where I can bring the most benefit to the firm.
I believe that's called your most profitable activity.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Good. All right. So let's talk about how to set realistic and achievable goals for a new year. So this is kind of universal for any small business.
Yep.
But I think the first thing that I really want to nail down is, what is an achievable goal? It's always great to be like, oh my God, we're going to 2,000% growth, which is not, it may sound great, but all of a sudden that level of growth has growing pains too, right?
Sure.
Where you can't actually achieve that from a production standpoint.
Yep.
So give me some parameters, what an achievable
goal looks like. Well, so, I mean, the number one reason why people do not succeed on their goals is oftentimes they were not realistic or specific enough what that goal is. Mm-hmm. You can have those big goals. We call those big, hairy, audacious goals. BHAG is a phrase for that. And you can have those, right? It's good to have those lofty ambitions, but you have to understand that those are lofty ambitions. Those are not my executable goals that I will get done in X period of time. So then what we have to do is set something called SMART goals, right? So that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. So when setting a goal, you really have to spend some time and think about that goal. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to throw something on the wall, and that's what I'm going to go for. It could even be realistic, right? Mm-hmm. You can have one of those attributes, but that doesn't necessarily make it very achievable. Oftentimes, we've had failures in setting goals because we've set what I thought were very good goals, but maybe they weren't. Oftentimes, they weren't specific enough, right, within the time frame. So, say we operate on EOS. Mm-hmm. So for us, we break our goals down to quarterly goals, which we call rocks. Mm-hmm. Some things just physically cannot be accomplished in 90 days. So we did not accomplish all of our rocks in the last quarter. We did some, here's another term I like in activity I like to do. It's called after action report. So you spend some time and just think about and exercise, okay, what went wrong? Why didn't we not achieve what we set out to achieve here? And the common denominator for us was that we were not specific enough of what those goals were, that they were too long-term of a goal to accomplish in 90 days, which is fine. You don't have to accomplish the entire goal.
And something like that typically needs to be broken down then, right?
Exactly, right? So you can take that big, hairy, audacious goal that you have and break it down. What is actually achievable in the next 90 days, if that's my time frame that I'm looking at. So remember, SMART, time measurable, right? Can we achieve that in that time period?
And if not, let's break it down and get those pieces that will make it.
Exactly. And then specific, right? What, I could know in the back of my mind that that's what I meant. Mm-hmm. Was like, hey, I'm just going to get X, Y, and Z done as part of this big goal. But if I don't write it down and I don't have it documented, I'm not specific about it. You don't communicate it
to the other people in the organization, no one else is going to know that.
Exactly. So one thing we do with all of our goals, our rocks, we do something called an impact filter. That's a concept from Strategic Coach. And with an impact filter, what you do is you write down essentially what the goal is. You distill what happens if we achieve this goal, what happens if we don't achieve this goal. My most important takeaway from that process is we do something called, or it has something called success criteria. And what does that look like? Mm-hmm. So you actually take this big goal, even if it's a 90-day goal, you break it down of here are the specific things that need to happen to be successful in achieving that goal. And what that does is it really tells me, okay, is this realistic to achieve in 90 days? Or do I need to scale this back and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z in the next 90 days. And maybe in the next 90 days, we're going to do X, Y, and Z again, or whatever that those different steps are to achieve the greater global goal. But the key really is to spend the time and the energy and exercise your way through what that goal is and how do we actually achieve it.
And one way to really think about it, at least I like to think about this, is looking at a timeline or calendar and say, what can I really achieve? How much bandwidth do I have within a week?
Yep.
Okay. You may have this goal that is achievable within your 90 days. Mm-hmm. But where in those 90 days do you find the time? Oh, maybe have an hour every day. That's when you can start slipping it in.
Yeah. Well, that's a good activity to achieve that goal, right? Is, hey, I'm going to do some calendar blocking, and I say I'm going to reserve an hour once a week to work on this goal, to work on this initiative. Mm-hmm. And again, right, what gets measured gets done. And to me, calendar blocking to me is the source of measurement. It's making sure I focus on achieving whatever steps I need to do. And what makes that even more achievable, right? If you just have an hour block on your calendar each week and you say, I'm going to work on this goal, I don't even think that's enough. That's where I think having that broken down success criteria, if it's say it's an 8-week goal, I'm going to have 8 different pieces of success criteria, and I'm going to put that on my calendar once a week of here's the success criteria I need to finish this week. Because then when you reach that time block and I'm going to go work on, I know exactly what I need to go accomplish at that point in time. The more I have to just kind of come up with stuff, it's easy to get distracted then, right? If I'm walking into my time frame, I'm going to work on this, and I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? What's the next steps? I should never be thinking about what the next steps is at the time in which I'm supposed to execute it.
Next steps is always that high pie in the sky thing where you go into fantasy land. It takes you away from the actual focus of the work.
You should know exactly what steps you need to do to achieve that goal when you set that goal. Mm-hmm. Now, there might be times in which you need to tangent or pivot based because the goals could change over time too. That's a thing, right? Goals change throughout. You could replace a goal, right? You could say, this has to be deprioritized because I have a new prioritization. Mm-hmm. Fires happen, right? Sometimes you got to put out the fire. You got to put out the fire, and you got to say, okay, do I have capacity to continue on with that goal, or do I need to shelf that goal to the next period?
So, Eric, you brought up this one thing that I really like. You said 1 hour isn't enough, and this is we've had a lot of really great guests on our podcast.
Yeah,
and one thing that kind of stuck with me is when you take yourself out of doing the work, right, the putting out the fires, and you actually focus your time on being the business owner, operator, visionary, whatever it is you want to be, you free up that time. That's when your business can really grow because you're spending more than that hour.
Yep.
And really, let's
it's crazy when you think about it, right? 1 hour out of a 40-hour work week, right?
But if you think about it too, like an hour.
Yeah.
An hour really isn't that much. When you sit down to do something for an hour, right? The first 10, maybe even 15 minutes, are you just preparing your mind to be like, I am switching from work mode into planning mode.
Yeah.
Right. So when you take and let's say you set aside 4 hours, obviously you quadruple the amount of time you're doing it, but you're going to get a lot more done because now you're set aside and focused for that. So again, and this is a huge part of it. And I think this is probably one of the biggest steps for many small business owners to set this realistic and achievable goal is to take themselves out of working. Working. That's not accurate, but doing the work.
Yeah. What you brought up makes a lot of sense, right? And we hear it from business owners all the time. I wear a lot of hats is the phrase you hear, right? So that means, you said it takes me 10 or 15 minutes to switch from work mode to that mode. Well, if I'm wearing a lot of hats every time I change a hat, am I spending 10, 15 minutes to jump from production hat to HR hat to finance hat to,
and then
business
somebody
growth
calls
hat.
you.
And exactly. And then I got crisis management hat, and then I got my family hat. I got to put
that
on.
Hour just became 15 minutes of itself.
Exactly. Well, and think about it, right? If you're doing that multiple times a week, those are all that's a lot of wasted time. And that's where you got to say, okay, can I start removing hats? Can I delegate those hats out? And that should be, I'll guarantee you most of the small business owners that are listening to this podcast should think one of their goals should be, how do I remove a hat that I'm currently wearing?
Boom. Honestly, I think that's probably the best piece of advice that we can give right now. Here's one realistic and achievable goal, whether it's in the 90 days or within this year. Let's say 90 days, because that's the number we like to work with.
Yep.
And we always recommend is to remove a hat. Give somebody a hat. I wish, for those who are watching the video, I had a hat right now and I could just give it away.
Yeah. And I'll say a lot of you that are listening, you might say, well, what hat do I get rid of? And here's another exercise that we've learned from implementing the EOS process. There's a chart called Elevate and Delegate. So what you're essentially doing is you're drawing a 4-quadrant square. In the top left corner is what you're good at and what you love to do. And this quadrant is what you're good at and you're okay with doing. You're fine with doing it. You're like, okay, I can do this. You got this quadrant down here. You're good at it, but you hate doing it. And then you got this quadrant down here. And that's the stuff that you hate to do and you're not good at it. So
I'll let you guess which one you should be getting rid of.
Exactly, right? So you have to do an exercise, write down all the tasks that you're doing, right? Because I know we say we have these hats and they're very generalized. But again, get back to what I said, specific. How specific can you get? The more specific you are, the more achievable that you can do. For me, I said, hey, doing any type of resolution work is in my lower right quadrant because I'm a quick start. I like to get things started. I like to get things moving. Mm-hmm. Any type of IRS resolution is a long-term play that you're talking to multiple agents. They're frustrating. There's a lot of new people there. I lack the patience to do a really good job with that. And it's very frustrating for me to do. So I've delegated that work out. I'm not very good at it. But that's a very specific task, right? That's much more specific than my global. I'm going to just take this hat off. But by doing that, it's a step in the right direction. It's very achievable, very specific. I put a very specific time measurement on it. And I've executed on it.
So in EOS, I know that's part of the right person, right seat, right?
Correct.
So you always want, and this is totally getting off subject, but you always want every right person in the right seat. So when we're talking about these hats, we're talking about finding, hey, obviously you're wearing a ton, taking off the ones that aren't a good fit for you and finding a person who it is a good fit for.
Yes.
And that is the best of all worlds.
Exactly. Your bottom right quadrant might be somebody's top left quadrant.
Could be.
And that's something to think about is you could be keeping work that you hate doing away from somebody that would love to do it. It's a brilliant concept.
It is.
So, and everybody's different. Some people love it, right? Some people might look at IRS resolution as I'm working this long-term puzzle game, right? Mm-hmm. They like the table puzzle that they're working on for like 3 months at a time. Mm-hmm. And that's just not who I am. That's not my work style. So again, that might be in their top left quadrant and in my bottom right quadrant. So it's a good exercise to go through, get very specific, get very detailed.
And just one quick thing I'll add in too, and that's kind of where we try to fall in too, because obviously, Eric, you're very much, this is your top left, the bean counting, right? And for a lot of the small businesses, that is not what they're want to spend the whole day doing. Yep. It can be a total grind. So finding the right situation, the right people to do anything, to give those hats away is gold.
100%.
Right. Perfect. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thanks.
See you on the next podcast.
See you on the next one.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.